Height. It seems to be one of those defining features for most people. Wow, you're really tall. Do you play basketball? Wait, you're 18? You're awfully short, though. It's honestly one of the first things we tend to notice about someone. I guess unless you're on average. Both being short and tall have their advantages and disadvantages. For me, I run on the tall spectrum of things, being at the awkward height of 5'9". Now that may not seem very awkward, but I find it where I feel like I'm not that tall, but when it comes to doing things or approaching things, I find it to be a lot different due to me turning out to be taller than expected. It's like an in-between spot that makes things seem awkward, unless it's all in my head, which, yeah, totally plausible. Anyway, for being tall, it has, of course, led to some awkward, funny moments, like turning out a lot younger than expected. This situation mostly occurs at youth activities where I'm dragged out of the house to be around other human beings, which isn't all that bad when I have at least one good friend with me, because I'll talk with that one friend. Anyways, if I meet anyone new, they'd often be surprised at how much younger I am. For example, when I was 14, I went to one of my first church dances because you had to be at least 14 to go, and my parents didn't want me to go to school dances. I got asked by some random person to dance, which is actually normal for these kind of dances, and you are basically required. You were influenced by the adults to say yes to them at least once because they had the courage to ask. So I'm dancing with this guy, which I was definitely taller than him. Not like drastic, but it was still obvious. But not only was I taller than him for being 14, he was actually 18, which is the age you stop coming to these dances. Needless to say, it got pretty quiet after that. Another time I went to a Halloween party for the young adult ward, which the only reasons I wanted to go is because I love everything that's Halloween. My friends, who are identified as young adults, were gonna be there, and my older sister was going as a fancy inflatable dinosaur. So how could I not go? And no one I ever associated with knew I wasn't supposed to be there, besides friends and family. Granted, I was 17, so I wasn't that far off from being a young adult. My sister, on the other hand, was actually more impressive because she was 15 and no one had any clue that she isn't even old enough to start driving. Again, excluding friends and family. Another thing my height associates with is sports. When I go to family events with people I don't know being there, they'd often ask, "Do you play volleyball?" or sometimes basketball. And when I say no, they say, "Oh, well, you'd be good at it." Which, don't get me wrong, I enjoy playing volleyball. I never done a team, but my family has played it together. But I wasn't very coordinated, and overall I sucked. I've gotten a bit better since then, but it still shows how kind of ridiculous it is saying someone would be good at something just because they're tall. I get that being tall is an advantage when it comes to playing sports like volleyball or basketball, but the actual skill will take you way further than height would. Now, enough on what others think of my height. What do I think of it? I don't necessarily hate it. In fact, when I was younger, I wanted to be really tall. I remember even though I was considered tall, I didn't really feel tall enough, partly because there would be that one girl who was that Amazon height. It's not like I wanted to do something that you'd typically see tall people do. In fact, now that I think about it, most of my interests growing up would be better for someone on the shorter side. I guess I just like the idea of being tall. Now I'd like to be at least an inch shorter, but there's nothing I can really do about it, so I just try to accept it as it is. I guess I just drank too much milk as a kid.